Hello, Mr. Lee here. Let's get some practice on maxima and minima. Okay, so there's two different types. You have relative maxima and minima, or you have absolute maxima and minima. Okay, so I actually want to start with the absolute. Absolute just means out of your entire graph, where is your maximum point, your highest point, and your lowest point, minimum point. Okay, so this is asking mark the absolute minimum, which means I look at the entire graph. Where is the lowest point? Boom, right there. Nothing too complicated. Right? If this one's asking for the absolute maximum out of the entire graph, where's the highest point? It's going to be up here. You can say it has a y value of 6, right? You're allowed to just tell me the coordinates, right? -2, 6 is your max point. Or you can say the absolute max has a y value of 6, okay? But just to be safe, oftentimes you can just give me the both coordinates. All right, so that is absolute out of the entire graph. Now, on to relative. We use the word local in class, okay? They mean the same thing. Different, math textbooks and different places around the world, they'll interchange these words, okay? So relative is the same as local. So local meaning just in its general area, is it a maximum or minimum point? Okay, so you can have multiple relative max points, or you can have multiple relative min points. All right, so for example, this is asking mark all the relative minimum points. So a relative min can also be the absolute, right? So in this case, I'm going to start from the left of the graph and go all the way through the right. Okay, so from here, I'm decreasing. I reach a low point here. This actually happens to be the absolute minimum, right? But in this case, it's also a relative minimum because in its general area, in its local area, it's its lowest point, okay? So then it starts increasing. We reach a relative maximum here. We don't want to touch that because we're only focusing on minimum points. And then it dips down again, decreases. This one is also a relative minimum because in its area, it's its lowest point, right? Decreases and then increases again. You have a dip. So this one, we have two relative minimums. Let's see just a few more examples of the relative. Okay, this one's asking for mark all the relative maximum points. So again, I'll start from the left. It increases all the way to this highest point. This also happens to be the absolute maximum. But in its area, in its local area, it's the highest point. So we're going to also mark that. It dips down, decreases. This is a relative minimum. And then it dips back up and then back down. We should have a relative maximum also here. Okay, so they're both relative maximums. This one is your absolute maximum, but we've marked all of the relative maximum. Okay, maybe just one more for good measure. Mark all the relative minimum points. Okay, so starts on the left. I'm decreasing. That's nothing. I'm going to decrease again. I have a relative minimum. In its area, it's the lowest point. I'm increasing, and then it changes. So it changes the slope, but don't confuse that with a dip, right? Because it's still increasing left to right. So that means I don't reach any new low point. This is the only relative minimum, which happens to also be an absolute minimum.